So everybody heard the story about the anti-Semitic tropes from Minnesota's Ilhan Omar. And let me walk you through it, because everyone knows that our government is completely bought and paid for and completely corrupted by not only money from the pro-Israeli lobby, but from all different lobbies, from Wall Street, military-industrial complex. It's completely captured, which is why we live in an oligarchy. And that's really what's wrong with our government, and why 80% of workers live paycheck to paycheck, is because the people running our country are pretty much criminals who are in bed with the people they're supposed to be regulating. So they're all corrupted and criminals, and that's why we live in this world, right, where income disparity is the greatest since the Gilded Age. So when Ocasio-Cortez points out how bad it is, how bad it's rigged, and how corrupt the money in politics is, everybody loves it, right? Remember what she just did this last week? They tweeted this out. There was 37 million views on this, of her talking about this in Congress and dressing down this person. But you're not allowed to say that about the AIPAC lobby, right? And let me just give you a little background about how influential pro-Israeli money is in our politics. This is from Electronic Intifada. It says, any observer of Washington politics knows that this is no exaggeration when it comes to the power of pro-Israeli money. It's scarcely a secret that Donald Trump's insistence on recognizing Jerusalem as Israel's capital and moving the U.S. embassy there was in fulfillment of a promise to Sheldon Adelson, the billionaire pro-Israel mogul who was the biggest donor to the president and the Republican Party. By the way, that's a super controversial move. It was roundly condemned for him doing that. And why would you do that? There you go. Cash. The influence of Adelson's cash on the United States foreign policy has been enormous, even if the media refused to talk about it. And just last week, 77 out of 100 United States senators voted for the AIPAC-backed Combating BDS Act, which targets the Palestinian Solidarity Movement and violates First Amendment free speech rights of United States citizens. So you know what that is. BDS is
boycott, divestment, sanctions.
Boycott, divestment, and sanctions. And it's a nonviolent way to pressure the Israeli government to stop oppressing the Palestinians and come to a two-state solution, or a solution, and stop having Gaza be an open-air prison, and stop shooting medics at their border, and stop oppressing the people, right? So that's what the BDS is. And we did it in South Africa. It worked. So now people are doing it to Israel. Israel says that's anti-Semitic to single out their horrible behavior when a lot of people are also horrible. That's not a really good defense, but that's what they say, and that's what BDS is. It's boycott, divestment, and sanctions against Israel. And so 77 out of 100 United States senators voted to make it illegal for you to participate in this. Jeffrey Goldberg, a pundit. So that, just so you know how powerful the pro-Israeli lobby is in the United States. They're very powerful. Jeffrey Goldberg, the pundit and former Israeli prison guard, recounted in a 2005 article for The New Yorker about a dinner he once had with Steve Rosen. And who's Steve Rosen? He's the director of foreign policy issues at AIPAC. And here's what Steve Rosen told Jeffrey Goldberg at that dinner. Are you ready for this? I hope you're sitting down. He said, "You see this napkin?" Rosen told Goldberg. "In 24 hours, we could get the signatures of 70 senators on this napkin." I would say 77. They're bragging about the power they have. You're just not allowed to mention it if you're not one of them. If you're not in AIPAC, you're just not allowed to mention it. And so what this quick story was, McCarthy was upset at Ilhan Omar, that she was saying mean things about, and he was saying it was anti-Semitic, and he compared what she was saying to Steve King, who famously was just rebuked for saying, "What's wrong with being a white nationalist?" Anyway, it was never clear what exactly he was upset about. It was never clear exactly what he was comparing what they said. So Glenn Greenwald tweets this out. I'm just going to give you, this is a brief recap of what happened, because you probably already know. So I'm just a brief recap. So Glenn Greenwald tweeted out, GOP leader Kevin McCarthy threatens punishment for Ilhan in Minnesota and Rashid Tlaib over their criticisms of Israel. It's stunning how much time U.S. political leaders spend defending a foreign nation, even if it means attacking free speech rights of Americans. So he tweeted that. That's Glenn Greenwald. So then Ilhan Omar retweeted that and says, Glenn, it's all about the Benjamins, baby, quoting that rap song.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about the Benjamins, baby. And then someone named Batya Unger Sargon tweeted out, hey, would love to know who Ilhan thinks is paying American politicians to be pro-Israel. And she retweets it and says, AIPAC. And that's when all the wheels came off. That's when all the phony pearl clutchers came out of the woodwork. And, well, here's Chelsea Clinton, co-signed as an American. We should expect all elected officials, regardless of power, party, and public figures, to not traffic in anti-Semitism. That's traffic in it. Chelsea Clinton, go away. You nothing person. You reminder of what's wrong with our country. Go away. Still thinks people should be in jail for marijuana.
Yep.
Just so you know who Chelsea Clinton is. So this woman says, please learn how to talk about Jews in a non-anti-Semitic way. Sincerely, she's saying that to Ilhan Omar. And then Chelsea Clinton says this stupid thing. And then Dan Cohen retweets that woman, Sargon, and says, Israel does not represent all Jews. It's pathetic that an opinion editor for a major Jewish newspaper either A, doesn't understand that that's an anti-Semitic trope, saying that Israel speaks for all Jews. That's actually an anti-Semitic trope. Isn't that wild?
Mm-hmm.
That's the anti-Semitic trope. Of course, what's up is down and black is white, right? A, doesn't understand that that's an anti-Semitic trope, and B, is advancing the trope to smear as critic of Israel's oversized influence in U.S. politics. So that's what's really happening. And you know how I know, and here's how you'll know now, that all this fervor over Ilhan Omar's tweet, it's all about the Benjamins and AIPAC, how it's all phony outrage. How do I know it's phony outrage, and how are you going to know? Because here is Thomas Friedman, celebrated New York Times writer, writing in the New York Times. This was back in 2011. And he wrote about, remember when Benjamin Netanyahu came and spoke to a joint session of Congress, and he did that in defiance of Barack Obama? Imagine if Putin did that. Imagine if Putin came here and addressed our joints, and Obama didn't want him. Anyway, but that's what Netanyahu did. Talk about power. And he got a standing ovation. And here's Thomas Friedman writing in the New York Times. Here's what he wrote about that. He said, I sure hope that Israel's Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, understands that the standing ovation he got in Congress this year was not for his policies. That ovation was bought and paid for by the Israeli lobby.
And they all stood up right after they were done signing that napkin. So there wasn't a lot of time.
So that's how you know this is all phony. Because no one cared when he wrote that, because everyone knew it was true. Ilhan Omar says basically the same thing, except she's wearing a Muslim headscarf, a hijab, right? That's what they call them. And you are definitely not going to be allowed to say the same thing that Thomas Friedman's allowed to say in the New York Times. Who do you think you are, Muslim? You get to say things about AIPAC and the Israel lobby the same as you are not equal to Thomas Friedman. Only he gets to say this stuff in the New York Times. Not on Twitter, in the New York Times. So that's how you know all this is bullshit. Let me throw it to my panel. I'm here with Steph Zamorano, the Miserable Liberal, and Ron Placone, who's going to be on tour soon. Where are you going to be on tour, Ron?
In March, I'm going to be in the Gulf. I'm going to be in New Orleans, Pensacola, Lafayette, and Oxford, Mississippi. RonPlacone.com for all tickets.
All right. So what do you would make of this?
Well, Jimmy, I was immediately thinking when Benjamin Netanyahu came and spoke to Congress, I thought, was there another world leader that's been given that privilege to do so?
I don't know. I not that I can remember. Can you remember of that, Ron? I mean, no.
And so controversial at that.
That was very controversial.
Yes. So for me, I really appreciate Glenn Greenwald's support of Ilhan Omar on this. It's specific, it's direct, and we get it's freedom of speech. And for them to immediately smear her and say that she's anti-Semitic, I'm sitting here reading the tweets and I'm like, that's what they came up with?
That's what they came up with. And it's just like, I try to warn people, but, who am I to warn anyway? But I remember when they started in 2015 with Bernie's a sexist. And I warned them, there's a story you're taught as a kid called The Boy Who Cried Wolf. So when you cry wolf, no one's going to listen to you when there's actually a wolf. So when you say Bernie Sanders is sexist, and there's some people who support him, the most progressive people in the country are sexists and horrible people, Neanderthals. Well, when you actually do bump into a sexist, that term has been diminished. It doesn't have the sting it used to because you're calling somebody who's a great person like Bernie Sanders, who was made an honorary woman by Gloria Steinem in the 90s, somebody who couldn't be farther away from being a sexist. When you call someone like that a sexist, now when Donald Trump shows up, that term sexist doesn't have the sting it should. So when you call people criticizing the lobbying group of Israel, and they're not allowed to, and they're called anti-Semitic for criticizing the lobbying group, now you're diminishing the power of the term anti-Semitism or anti-Semite, and now it doesn't really mean as much as it used to. So now when a real anti-Semite shows up, it's not going to stick. You've just done the boy who cried wolf. Congratulations.
Yeah. I mean, it was when I saw all that outrage, I was just like, you've got to be kidding me. And I saw the best tweet I saw on it was somebody just tweeted, they were just like, look, anti-Semitism means you hate somebody who's Jewish because they're Jewish. What anti-Semitism doesn't mean is criticizing money in politics. That's not anti-Semitism.
That's not anti-Semitism.
Nowhere close.
Not even close. Thank you very much, Ron. So she did one of these mea culpas where she gave an apology, but I like that her apology, she kind of still stuck it to them. So I'll read it. I'll read it real quick to you. She says, anti-Semitism is real, and I am grateful for Jewish allies and colleagues who are educating me on the painful history of anti-Semitic tropes. My intention is never to offend my constituents or Jewish Americans as a whole. We have to always be willing to step back and think through criticisms, just as I expect people to hear me when others attack me for my identity. This is why I unequivocally apologize. At the same time, I reaffirm the problematic role of lobbyists in our politics, whether it be AIPAC, the NRA, or the fossil fuel industry. It's gone on too long, and we must be willing to address it. That's the kind of apology I like, because she reaffirms what she really means anyway. Hey, sorry I offended you. You guys are fucking ruining shit. Sorry I offended you, but you guys are the problem. That was great. So here's another way to look at it. Look at it this way. This furor is a result of bad faith reading of Omar's tweet about AIPAC. Meanwhile, the Israel lobby and its political allies regularly say things like Palestinians sacrifice their children to make Israel look bad without even 1% of the pushback that this got. Pretty good point, huh? Hey, but here's from the Jewish Worker. That's from the Jewish Worker. They say, look what they're saying. They say a lot. F AIPAC, we're Jews, and F the pro-Israel lobby, we're Jews, and F Congress people who take money hand over fist from pro-Israel lobbyists and PACs, we're Jews, and F the lies Zionists tell to silence opposition, we're Jews, and this isn't anti-Semitism. That's from the Jewish Worker, at the Jewish Worker. Kamala's Harris, as a cop, says, it's outstanding that 99.9% of our elected officials believe a lobbying group is a protected class, and speaking against it is hate speech. This, of course, completely normal.
Mm.
So there you go. That's we'll end it there. We'll end that. So that's how. So how do you know this is all phony outrage? Thomas Friedman. That's how you know it's all phony outrage. You're welcome. We're announcing our live dates for 2019. We're going to Chicago and Portland, Seattle, New York, all over the country. Go to jimmydorecomedy.com for a link for all our tickets to all our shows. It'll be right underneath there, too. Please become a patron if you like our content and help support the show. You can become a patron for $5 a month, and we give you hours of bonus material. And make sure you're subscribed. They unsubscribe people every day. I'm not kidding. Make sure you're subscribed and click that bell so they give you a notice when we drop a video. It's the only thing we can do to fight back against the bastards. Thanks for your support.